One. Justice forever. Forever. What's up, guys? It's Geeks with Wives and Capes, episode 50. I'm your host, Casey, and I'm here with two co-hosts tonight and a very special guest. We'll get to him last, though. So first, let's introduce the man to my right, Will Elizondo. How's it going, Will?
Hey, can you believe we're on episode number 50? If you would have told me we would even make it to 50, I would have never believed you.
And two more, it'll be an entire year.
Hey, that's pretty awesome, man. How's it going, brother?
It's going good besides the horrible technical issues I had seconds before we were about to push start. But other than
Hey,
that,
just remember, the most beautiful roses grow out of thorns.
it's poetic.
Trying to get ethereal on you here.
So we got Will. We also have a returning co-host back from the dead.
Yes.
Chris, how's it going, Chris?
All right, good to see everyone. I'm finally back.
What are you drinking tonight?
Me, I've actually had nothing tonight.
Oh my gosh.
I have actually cheap water from Save-On or somewhere.
Whoa. Take a picture, everybody. The last time you're going to see that.
I should have brought something to drink.
Yeah, last time was a mess.
Usually Chris is propping himself up with his elbow by the end of the podcast.
It's Thursday,
Half
right,
a
Chris?
bottle of Southern Comfort.
It's Thursday.
Yeah, it's Jack. Get it right, Jack.
All right. So last, but definitely not least, our special guest, by way of Los Angeles, California. You know him as director of Cry Wolf, Kick-Ass 2, some episodes of Bates Motel, one and only Jeff Wadlow. How's it going, Jeff?
I'm doing very well, guys. Thank you for having me.
Did I get all those credits right?
You kind of. I didn't direct any episodes of Bates Motel. I wrote a couple and I produced the first 6.
Even better.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Also produced Nonstop with Liam Neeson that came out this year.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
So what's the difference? I mean, obviously you're an auteur and have your hands in all aspects of making a film. What's the main difference between, or actually, what's your favorite job to do? Writing, directing, or producing?
I love directing. Directing's the best because, you're in it, and it's like being in a fight. I mean, just everything is coming at you, and you're acting on instinct, and you have to constantly be ready to improvise and make a different choice than maybe the one you planned, but at the same time, you have to be holding on to your vision, and you have to be the rock, the one that refuses to settle for anything other than what will best serve the story. So it's the most difficult job I've ever had to do, but it's also my favorite.
Awesome.
So speaking of directing in your career in Hollywood, where did it all start? Where did it all start for you? What was your origin story?
My origin story, that's kind of a tough one because I don't remember not wanting to be a filmmaker. My father tells a story that he took me to see Empire Strikes Back, which I guess came out in '79 if I remember correctly, so I would have been like 3 or 4. I mean, just a kid, just a toddler. And when we walked out of the movie theater, I don't remember this, but my father swears that I turned to him and said, so what does a director do exactly?
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I was just kind of obsessed with doing this. And, whether I was directing my action figures and creating epic sagas in my bedroom and all over the house with all my different toys, or I was, collecting comic books and trying to draw and write my own comic books, or if I was, involved in community theater or, starting up a public access station in high school, I was just always focused on coming to Hollywood and making big commercial movies that could appeal to a really wide audience, and not just a wide audience, but appeal to me because those are the movies I love.
So what was the first movie or project that you had your hat in and that you really knew this is what you wanted to do?
I mean, it's a tough one because I've always known. I mean, if you had asked me while I was growing up, I'd always say I'm going to go to Hollywood and be a director. For my 16th birthday, my aunt gave me a Hook movie poster signed by Steven Spielberg. That said "Good luck with directing," and I still have it, on my wall in my office. It's I love it, not only because it's like signed by Steven Spielberg and he's wishing me good luck with pursuing my dream, but it's also Hook, which is arguably not one of his best movies, and it's it's an important reminder. What's that?
My favorite scene in that movie is when they all find him and they touch his face, and then the big fat kid comes up and looks right in his face and goes, "There you are, Peter."
Yeah, or when they're like on the skateboards. It's just a strange little movie, but I think it's an important reminder to me as a filmmaker and a storyteller that you swing for the fences every time, but you're not going to always hit a home run. Even Steven Spielberg doesn't always hit a home run. It's more about just staying in a place of being creative and trying to tell as many interesting stories as you can, and some of them are going to come together and connect with an audience, and some of them aren't, and you just got to keep swinging.
Sure.
So you mentioned being a comic book guy when you were a kid. What was your favorite comic as a kid, or one that you still remember or call back to all the time?
Man, I was such a child of the 90s, so I remember the kind of the image explosion so vividly, and the final books those guys did at Marvel were just so amazing. The Jim Lee run on X-Men, it's just visually so exciting, and I still think the definitive version of the X-Men all these years later. I'm desperate for them to do a Marvel Legends Jubilee, because I think she's pretty much the last figure that I'm missing from the Jim Lee era. I really remember reading the Dark Knight Returns and the impact that had on me. I also really remember the Claremont X-Men work. Even before I was really like a super comic book collector, before I was bagging and boarding everything and buying multiple foil covers, just when I was reading them in elementary school and early middle school before I became an avid collector, I remember being really struck by the Claremont work, especially with Wolverine in particular. I can't remember which issue it is. It's the issue where Lady Deathstrike and the Reavers come after him. I can still see the cover. It's kind of purplish, and Wolverine's upside down. He's got all the sort of machine parts digging into him. And it's really an intense issue. And that one really stuck with me. Also, Larry Hammond's G.I. Joe stuff, really resonated with me because I don't know how old you guys were, or if you were collecting comics back then, but X-Men, they didn't have X-Men action figures, right? They didn't really have cool superhero figures back then. They just started doing it when I got into high school. Toy Biz did their first X-Men line. So, really connecting media to action figures happened for me with G.I. Joe, Masters of the Universe, and Transformers. And the Masters of the Universe and Transformers comic books were kind of lame, but the Larry Hammond G.I. Joe stuff is just amazing. I love those issues. Still have them.
So speaking of Masters of the Universe, and you may or may not be involved in some kind of project down the future, what's your favorite character from that world?
My favorite character from Masters. I'd probably have to say two. I would have to do a hero and a villain, because I love them all so much. I would say my favorite villain is Trapjaw, definitely.
Yeah.
I love Trapjaw. And I would say my favorite hero, God, as a kid I loved Fisto. I loved that action figure. Just something about him with that hand. I just imagine just like punching Skeletor. So yeah, I really love Fisto too. I put him up there.
They haven't remade that figure, have they?
They've done them a couple times. They did them in, for the most part, I really love the 2000X Master stuff that they did, around year 2000.
Right.
They did. I don't know, did you guys watch that show, the Mike Young show?
I watched a few episodes of it, yeah.
Yeah, and the Four Horsemen redesigned the characters, but they were really sort of updates of the classic looks. And for the most part, they were just slam dunks. Like their Trapjaw was fantastic. He just this big, massive mech arm that just looks so scary. Yeah. But then, actually, I think anyway, I have one of them back there. I could have showed you. another time. But the one miss I think was Fisto. They gave Fisto this like giant hand, and it just kind of looked lame. It looked like he had like one of those big foam fingers from like a sporting event. So that didn't really work. But then they did Fisto for the Motu Classics line, and he's very cool. I think he's actually one of the most valuable figures on eBay right now because they did a really fantastic job with him.
Yeah.
So
I'm a pretty hardcore geek. Can you tell?
That's what I was gonna say.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm pretty hardcore.
This is gonna be a good interview for fans because I think
this might be the first time we've ever had somebody talk about toys besides me on the show.
Yeah. Now I've got a real problem. My deal with my with the lady in my life is I can buy as many as I want, and I've bought a lot of them. But as long as I open them, I cannot leave them in the packaging. That is her rule. She's like, no, I can't handle any of that 40-year-old virgin nonsense. You can't do like mint on card hanging on your wall. You gotta open them. You gotta pose them. Like I just opened Scareglow. Like here's Scareglow. You gotta open them. You gotta pose them. I don't call posing them. I call it creating tableaus.
Whoa! Hold on. What was that? Creating what now?
Tableaus.
Yeah, it's awesome.
If I can somehow justify that it's part of my directing career, I can write them off on my tableaus.
Awesome.
So you're obviously a huge toy collector. What's your favorite toy?
I'm a pretty die-hard G.I. Joe fan. I mean, I pretty much, ever since they started that 21st anniversary line, I think in like 2007, I pretty much bought every single figure they put out. I was a little cool on the Rise of Cobra action figures. I maybe bought like half of them. But I bought all the Retaliation figures. I mean, I just love them. I think they're fantastic. I also love what the G.I. Joe Collectors Club is doing right now, the subscription service. I think they're doing a great job. I mean, there's a couple misses, but for the most part, they're doing really great homages to the original figures. I'm also loving Motu. You know, I at first I kind of didn't get into the classics line because I liked the 2000X stuff so much, and I felt a little burned by the way they just ended that so abruptly. And I thought the classics line initially was a little overpriced, and I just didn't want to pick up a new line. But since starting to work on the movie, I've gone back and I've actually picked up the entire line, going all the way back to 2008, due in large part to Mattel's generosity, but I've also bought a lot of them on eBay. And I'm really digging those figures. I mean, I think they've done a fantastic job. The Four Horsemen, you know, really knocked it out of the park. They feel like vintage figures, but also they have a sort of a modern take, and the articulation is really solid. And Scott Nylick, who is the toy guru over there, I just think is such a smart guy, and the way he's, you know, trying to take all the different versions of Masters, whether it's New Adventures or 2000X, or the original line, or the Princess of Power stuff, and the way he's trying to sort of heal the inconsistencies and create a singular narrative that he's just telling through the stories on the back of the cards, you know, and there's no media to support this.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool and kind of masterful, and I know there's some people online have expressed some dismay about some of the bio cards, but I just think the scope of it is so impressive, and the fact that he sat down and he figured this massive mega story out, a story you can never tell in a movie or even a TV show. The only way you could really tell it is through comic books, and he figured it all out, you know, 8 years ahead of time, and planned this toy line. I just think it's so impressive.
Yeah. It definitely shows that they put a lot of thought into that. I mean, that's why they're so sought after, man. That's why they sell out like in a day when they put those figures up for sale. It's just, they're amazing.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. It's very cool what they're doing over there.
Yeah.
So, obviously, no question now, huge fan of Masters of the Universe. In fact, I would bridge on obsessed. How did you feel about the Dolph Lundgren movie?
Basically, it's like someone reached into my throat and pulled my childhood out of my soul and took it away and said, "Guess what, pal? It's over."
Yeah.
It was crushing. I mean, it probably had a lot to do with the age I was. I think it came out in '87, so it's probably like 11 or 12 when it came out. And yeah, it was a big kick in the balls. It's just like someone just stomped on my innocence. I did not like it. I did not like it at all. In fact, I mean, it was just so bitterly disappointing because, you know, I wanted that movie. I wanted to see Trapjaw. I wanted to see Triclops.
Yeah.
I wanted to see Stratos. And look, I applaud the expansion of any brand. Like, I do believe you need to bring in new characters and new blood and new ideas, but there was just too many new characters. Gwildor, I mean, what the... Just...
I was gonna say, hell, man. I even wanted to see Orko, and they put Gwildor. Who the heck is Gwildor?
bitterly disappointing. I mentioned something before we started too. There was like a 1-2 punch. I loved Masters. I was super into Masters. Probably even a little bit more than G.I. Joe as a kid. As I've gotten older, I've sort of gotten more excited about G.I. Joe. Now I'm all about Masters, obviously. But before I started working on the Masters movie, I was a little more into G.I. Joe than Masters. Mostly because of what happened with 2000X. But as a kid, I was super hardcore Masters. I mean, I had all the figures. I remember when the first wave of 8 came out. I think it was 82, so I was 6 years old. I got all 8 for Christmas. And I still remember them so vividly and being really confused by Zodak. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? I don't understand. And so I loved it. And I bought every wave that came out and was just rabid about getting them all. And then I was so excited about the Horde. I loved the story of like Skeletor's mentor and this new army of bad guys and the idea of like a third force to be reckoned with. It's not just good guys and bad guys. There's now this sort of third entity. I was really into that as a kid. Like I loved when they did that in G.I. Joe with Serpentor. Like Serpentor had his own team, Cobra Commander had his team. Right. So I like that kind of storytelling. So I was really excited about the Horde. And I don't know if you remember this, but they canceled the Filmation series after 2 seasons. And so they took all the Horde characters, which were supposed to be He-Man villains, and they plugged them into the She-Ra storyline. And so, you know, and maybe my friends were outgrowing action figures. I clearly still haven't yet. So I remember going to school after Christmas and being like, oh, guys, I was on the bus. I was like, I got the Horde. I got Hordak. I got Grizzler. It's so cool. And I remember some kid a little older than I was at the time on the bus saying, Hordak, isn't that from She-Ra? Isn't that like a girl's toy? And I was like, no, that's not a girl's toy.
You shut your face.
Yeah, you shut your hole, man. Like girls' toys.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure everyone on the bus decided that I had gotten into dolls at that point. I think between that and the '87 movie being so disappointing, I was out.
You were ousted from society.
I was done. I was done with the
island.
Yeah. But I really didn't get back into Masters until 2000 when Mike Young did that series, the 2000X series. I just loved it. I thought it was so cool. It had this sort of anime style, like the fight sequences. They would like jump in the air and sort of fly through the air like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And I just thought the designs were evocative of the original characters, but still felt very contemporary and cool, and the way they expanded the mythology. And you know, that's the first time they introduced the idea of Skeletor being Adam's uncle. I mean, up until that point, like nobody really knew who Skeletor was. Like if you go back and you look at the mini comics, you know, even before the Filmation series and the DC comics, when they did introduce the idea of Prince Adam and the whole sort of Clark Kent Superman dynamic, you know, He-Man was just a barbarian, and the idea was that there was this great war that left behind these massive machines that nobody really understood, and it also opened a portal that this demon warlord came through, and that was Skeletor, and that was his whole origin story. That was it.
Yeah. Intense, man. You know way more about
Hey,
than I do.
Your obsession is paying off now.
What was that?
Your obsession is paying off now, so.
Yes.
You can go tell that guy had a girl toy to fuck off.
That's how I got the job. I went in for the meeting at Sony, and I prepared a bunch of materials. You know, I worked with concept artists to realize how I saw the characters in a movie world, and I worked with special effects houses to do pre-vises for different sequences, and I cut a little trailer, and I worked with another artist to build sets of 2 characters, but I also brought in my action figures from 1983. I still have my He-Man, my Battle Cat, my Skeletor. I have all of them. I saved them all. And I brought in, a handful of them, and I put them on the conference table, and I said, my whole life has been building to this moment. I got into directing action figures, these exact action figures. I mean, even my He-Man, he still has like a little rubber band across the back where his chest harness thing broke. And the snap didn't work anymore, so I had to hold it together with a rubber band, which is now crumbling because it's 30 years old. And I said, this is why I make movies, these exact figures. And I said to them, my whole life, my whole career has been building to this moment, to making this movie. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. This is the story I want to tell. And I spent an hour laying it out for them, and they got really excited, and that's why I'm working on it now.
That's rad.
That's awesome. Love it.
So we were all required to watch Kick-Ass 2. So now we're going to talk about that.
Now you saw it in theaters. Come on.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Of course.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Even if you didn't, just pretend like you did, please.
Of course we did.
I saw it in theaters 5 times. I bought it
fantastic.
Twice.
Fantastic. I appreciate it. Thank you for the support.
And me and my 2-year-old watch it every Saturday morning.
Perfect. I understand you very well now, Casey.
She loves it.
She's like, game on, cocksuckers.
Yeah.
She's a mini hit girl.
Yeah, she's a girl.
So going to that movie and
mini
having
hit
the first
girl.
one,
Yeah.
so going to that movie and having the first one kind of be, I guess, kind of a hit, like a breakout hit or a cult hit, or I guess if you will. What was your mentality going in at that point, and how you were going to approach the project?
That was a tough movie to make because, there were sort of logistical challenges that really didn't have anything to do with the creative process, and there were major creative challenges that needed to be faced. And the reason why they didn't make the movie for a couple of years after the first one was I just think people didn't really know how to crack some of those creative issues. What was so great about the first movie, and I love the first movie. I just saw the first movie just as a fan. Like, I didn't know anybody involved in it. I saw it in the theaters.
Right.
And obviously, Hit Girl, just like, she leapt off the screen. Just the idea of the character was so powerful, but also Chloe's performance and the film that Matthew and Jane wrote and that Matthew directed. It just all came together. Earlier when I was talking about Steven Spielberg, about not every movie, coming together. That's a perfect example of Kick-Ass. It just all came together, and it just worked, and it connected with people. And not as many people saw it in theaters as they should have, but they definitely discovered it after the fact. But one of the challenges that created was, you love Hit Girl, you love Mindy because she's this adolescent assassin, pre-adolescent assassin, and Chloe was growing up very fast. She was 11 when they made that movie, and by the time we got into production, she was 15. So there's a big difference between an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old. And so it was hard to kind of figure out how to create a sequel. And by the way, it wasn't just Hit Girl. Hit Girl is sort of emblematic of the larger problem. It was hard to create a sequel to that first film that felt like it was being true to the first film, when our actors were growing up so quickly, faster than we wanted the characters to grow up. Yeah. And then it was compounded by the fact that Mark and John did their own sequel to the comic book. There's a Kick-Ass 2 comic, graphic novel, which is fantastic. I love it. But the Kick-Ass 1 movie took some departures from the Kick-Ass 1 comic. The Kick-Ass 2 comic is a direct sequel to the Kick-Ass 1 comic. And it was almost impossible to do a direct movie sequel to Kick-Ass 1 because of the time that it passed, right? So you're starting to sense like this sort of matrix of problems that was wrapping this movie. Like, a cast is growing up. I've got to figure out a way to adapt a comic book that's a sequel to a comic book that the movie, took some significant departures from, right? And to get specific, in the Kick-Ass comic, Mindy's mom is alive, and she plays a part in the Kick-Ass 2 comic. She's not alive in the Kick-Ass movie. So when I was starting to think about Kick-Ass 2, the movie, I had to figure out, what am I going to do about that? Or actually, a more significant problem was that in the Kick-Ass 1 comic, Dave doesn't end up with Katie, right? Mm-hmm. She goes, I think she gives a blowjob to some other guy and takes a picture of it on her cell phone and sends it to Dave. Whereas in the movie, Lindsay Fonseca, who played Katie, she's fantastic in the movie, and she gets together with Dave, who's played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and you love them together as a couple, so they're together at the end of the movie. So how do you handle that? Because they're not together in the Kick-Ass 2 comic. So dealing with all those challenges was really daunting. So the way I did it was I basically took Mark and John's comic, which they were actually finishing while I was writing. He hadn't even started on the Hit Girl mini yet, and he was finishing up the last issue of Kick-Ass 2. I only saw the breakdowns. I didn't even see the art when I wrote the screenplay. And so I just started adapting that as if the first movie didn't exist. So I did a whole draft where it was just an adaptation of the Kick-Ass 2 comic. And then I put it away for like a week. And so I could kind of get away from it and separate my mind from it. And then I watched Matthew's movie like 3 times back to back in one day. I just watched it in the morning, watched it in the afternoon, watched it at night. And then the next day, I got back into my screenplay and I did a page 1 rewrite. And I just basically rewrote the whole thing now as a sequel to the movie. And that was the only way I could kind of keep everything straight in my mind. And then, by the way, the movie then changed a lot as we made the film. A lot of things were altered. For example, in the script that we decided to make, again, I don't know how well you know the comic, but in the Kick-Ass 2 comic, Mindy goes to jail at the end of the graphic novel. It's a big cliffhanger. Whereas in the movie, we send her off into the sunset on her Hit Girl bike. And so the script that got greenlit, the script that we were going to make, had Mindy going to jail. Like I did this big Empire Strikes Back cliffhanger, and as we started getting closer to production, Matthew was really pushing me to really focus on what the movie needed to be, and while we were honoring the source material, not be slavish to the source material. And to Mark Miller's credit as well, he would say the same thing. He said to me on many occasions, look, I make comics, you make movies, you got to make the best movie you can make. So it was sort of a last-minute call to alter the ending to try to give us a little bit more of a uplifting is the wrong expression, but more of a feeling of Mindy leaping into the great unknown as opposed to being trapped in a box, which is just kind of a downer.
Yeah.
Well, you successfully answered all my questions in one because I'm a huge. I've read the comic twice or more, probably twice, 2.5 times. And I love it to death. And you answered, and those were going to be my questions. I was going to ask why go with the differences that you guys made. And some of them I completely understand. One of them I kind of have an issue with, and it has to do with the costumes.
Bring it on! Bring it on!
So the 2 parents that have their kid is lost. The name of their group. It's like
Remembering Tommy.
Remembering Tommy. There you go. Why not the night uniforms in the movie?
Well, again, we're just sort of following the template of the first movie, and if you actually look at the first movie, Big Daddy looks nothing like he did in the comic book, right? Total departure, and even Hit Girl looks quite different. She's got the ponytail and the lock in the comic, and they went a very different way with the movie, and some of the costumes are direct, exact depictions of what was in the movie, like Colonel Stars and Stripes. I mean, it's almost exactly the way you see it in the comic. That's what we did in the film, and the same with Dr. Gravity. I mean, Dr. Gravity looks like he stepped right off the comic book pages. But Remembering Tommy, it's not just that they're like a medieval knight and like an Amazon warrior. I mean, it's like so ridiculously over the top, the knight's armor. Like he's got this like helmet that's wider than his shoulders, and I just sort of tried to look at it through the lens of sort of the real life superhero movement. I don't know if you guys have seen that documentary that was on HBO called Superheroes, but
yeah, I have.
Yeah, so I was looking at their costumes, and Dr. Gravity could be one of those people, but I just felt like Remembering Tommy, it just didn't work, especially when you looked at their backstory. It's not like they were some, LARPers or some super geeks, that were doing this. They were supposed to be like our control. Like they were the non-comic book fans that were doing this. They were doing this because they lost their son, and they were sort of middle-aged. And I just thought, I was just trying to do something that was true to the characters and true to the movie, not necessarily the comic book. And this idea of real people trying to be superheroes, and I thought, I just tried to think about it from the character's point of view. It's always got to come down to character. And I felt that if you had this middle-aged couple that had lost their kid, and they wanted to like go out and try to make a difference, that they would have T-shirts printed up, and their crest would be their son's face, right? It just felt more authentic to me, and that their costumes wouldn't be that over the top because they're not comic book fans. And so that was ultimately the reason why we did it. Was we were just trying to look at it from the perspective of the characters.
Yeah.
Whatever, Jeff.
and I did it to piss you off, Casey.
Yes.
I know.
There's the real reason.
So that movie, Kick-Ass 2, definitely has a different tone to the comic book, and I'm sure that was intentional. But why go so much? I mean, I would say it's more colorful. It's much more colorful and much more fun. What was the decision to go that way as opposed to keeping it the dark, kind of dreary teen superhero drama?
Well, again, I mean, I was really trying to build off of the first film. You know, the first film ends with like a jetpack sequence, right? And this soaring track, and you know, people love that about the movie, and so I was trying to build off of that feeling. You know, in the movie, in the first film, Dave ends up with Katie. In the comic book, you know, Katie gives some other guy a blowjob and sends Dave the picture, as I said before. People wanted to see a sequel to the movie when they went to the theaters. They wanted to see an adaptation, I believe, of the comic, but they really wanted to also see a sequel to the first film. So I was just trying to find the intersection between the two, and that's really where it all came from, tonally.
I think we all appreciate you leaving the scene of Colonel Stars and Straps' decapitated head and the dog replacing that. I appreciate that. Thank you. I didn't need to see that in a live action setting.
Yeah, you know, and I talked to Mark about that a lot. I mean, what's interesting about a comic book is even though they're images of people, they aren't people, right? They're representations of people. It's not the same. There's an inherent separation, right? And they're not moving. They're still, and this is all very obvious stuff. Of course, they're not moving. It's a comic book, but you have to really start to think about it analytically, like what causes an audience to connect to a story. And I think with a comic book, there's a lot of barriers in that you're not dealing with real people. You don't have movement. You don't have sound. So you have to lean into extremes. I think with the comic book format to connect with an audience, and really to get your readers to forget they're reading a comic and just allow them to experience the story. In a movie, you just don't have to do that because you have other tools. You know, you have music, you have movement, you have sound, you have real people. Those are real people there, right? And so to make people feel sorry for the Colonel and to feel horrified by Chris's actions, I just felt you didn't need to be as explicit, you know. And what I tried to do in those instances, I always tried to acknowledge the source material, but then kind of go in a different direction. You know, like I didn't ever just cut things out. I always tried to kind of let the audience know I was aware of them, but that we were making a different choice. For example, in that scene, you know, Mother Russia says, "You want me to cut the dog? You want me to kill the dog?" And Chris goes, "Jesus Christ, I'm evil, but I'm not that evil, right?"
Yeah.
And so the point of that moment was I was saying to you guys, fans of the comic, I know in the comic that Chris kills the dog, but there's a sort of this unspoken rule that you never kill dogs in movies. Like, you can kill as many people as you want. You can kill hundreds of thousands of people, but if you kill the dog, the audience will never forgive you, right? So, exactly. So I was trying to make a joke out of that the height of evil is killing a dog in a movie, and even Chris is not willing to go that far.
Well, I appreciate that you kind of turned every scene like that was kind of, I mean, Mark Miller tends to be over dramatic, I think, in some of his books, and it seems every scene that I felt was over dramatic in that scene that they leave out in the movie, you turn it into a joke, including the rape scene in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really awesome way to do it, and I think I really find Kick-Ass 2 to kind of be the happy medium between that and the comic book, because I do think the comic book can get a little over the top sometimes and a little graphic, especially when you're involving people that are so young.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate you saying that, because, man, that particular moment was just so tough to figure out, because, you know, even after the movie came out, I had people online tweeting and commenting that they thought, you know, we weren't true to the comic by not including the rape scene, that it was emblematic of how far Chris was willing to go. But then I also had other people, like, you know, tweeting at me directly and sending me comments that, like, how dare I turn rape into a joke, right? So it was so hard to figure out how to walk the line there, and ultimately I felt that we didn't need to go as far as Mark did because it wasn't a comic. Mark had to go that far to make his point, but because it was a movie, we didn't need to go that far. But at the same time, I did feel we had to be true to the source material and we had to comment on it. And so that's why I put that moment in there where Chris wanted to rape her. That's how bad he is. That's how evil he is. That's how far he's gone. So that I thought that we were being true to what Mark intended for that scene. But then I thought it was fun to show that Chris, even though he wants to be evil, he can't perform in the moment, literally. And just kind of humiliate him in that moment and to make him the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
Because, obviously that kind of violence is terrible and horrible, and I think if you're gonna use it for any sort of commentary, you gotta shine a light on how terrible it is.
Yeah. So Jeff, I have a question. We were talking about the Colonel earlier. What was your experience working with Jim Carrey, and how did he get involved with the movie?
Jim is just awesome because he is totally nuts. I mean, I said this in a couple interviews when the movie came out. You love him in movies because you have no idea what he's going to do or say, and I'm here to tell you in real life, you have no idea what that guy's going to do or say. But that's why he's so fantastic, and he's a very kind man. He's really great to the crew. He threw this fantastic party for us on the Thames. He rented a riverboat and threw this amazing party for the entire cast and crew. He's just a generous, sweet guy, but also just operating on a totally different level than the rest of us. So really, the way I worked with him is, I just set up the cameras and let him do his thing. And he's a great collaborator, and he always made sure that I got at least one version of what I thought I needed from the scene. And then he would give me like 100 other different things. And some of my favorite moments in the movie, some of them we planned together on the day, and some of them they just came out of his mouth while we were shooting. Like that moment in Justice Forever when Insect Man is talking about how he's gay and that's why he doesn't wear a mask because it's too much like being in the closet. And Jim said, doesn't matter. What was the exact line? He said, as long as your heart's in the right place, we don't care what you put in your mouth. That is a brilliant line.
Yeah,
And he
sure.
I was shocked. I loved it. Or another great example is they used it in all the trailers when Jim said to Kick-Ass, we asked him to join them, and Kick-Ass says yes, and then Jim said, okay, now turn around. Turn around. I'm going to unzip you. It's time for the initiation. That was the way that moment happened. Was Jim showed up on the set, and he had like 10 different ideas for jokes there.
Yeah.
And it really wasn't supposed to be a joke. It was just supposed to be Kick-Ass saying, "Hell yeah, I'm in," and they cheer and we're out. Right. And he and I just like batted a bunch of different things back and forth. And I was in a fraternity in college, and I always thought it was funny when I was a pledge and they would really scare me and I would think something bad was going to happen, but it never did, obviously. And I thought it'd be funny if we did the same thing to Kick-Ass because he was sort of the pledge for this superhero fraternity. And Jim took that idea and just ran with it, and I thought it was such a fantastic moment. So I loved working with him. It was quite a big deal that he had some second thoughts about the level of violence after the film was done, right. Which I thought was kind of ironic because his character, carries a gun, but there's no bullets in it. And ultimately, it proves to be his undoing. If he had some bullets in that gun, he might have survived the attack of the toxic megacuns. So in a weird way, he was sort of a pacifist superhero. But Jim decided that the movie was just too explicit. Although I loved Mark's response. He said, when you're making a movie called Kick-Ass 2, it's kind of got to do what it says it's going to do.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
So, what was your most memorable moment on that film?
There were so many. In the Evil Lair, when the doors open and the heroes come in, and you get that kind of great, like, good guys versus bad guys stare down.
Yeah.
That moment, I just think, is so thrilling. And there's so many great stuff. I actually prefer the extended cut that's on the DVD of that scene, where we bring the dog back, where we set up the six stick, where we get to spend a little time with all the different characters. It's just so much fun because, ultimately that's what the movie is about. It's about teams, and it's about wanting to belong and finding a group that you can identify with, because ultimately I think we all define ourselves through the company we keep. And when I initially pitched my take on the movie, I said, if the first film was about these three characters figuring out who Kick-Ass was, who Hit Girl was, and who Red Mist was, I think the second film should be them trying to figure out who they are, who they really are, who is Dave, who is Mindy, who is Chris. And I think the way we do that is we figure out who we are through the relationships we make. And so seeing, I'm plugging my computer in for anyone watching the video while I suddenly turn the screen down. Seeing these teams come together and seeing how Chris and Dave have chosen to define themselves through those relationships, I thought was just really exciting.
You know what I liked about that layer was you had like new school with old school. You had like the stripper rotating little booth going, but you had the shark in the background, which kind of reminded me of Dr. No.
Yeah.
I really did like how it was. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I like it was like new school, old school villain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Russell DeRosario is the production designer, both on Kick-Ass 1 and Kick-Ass 2. I pretty much used the entire crew from Kick-Ass 1. I was really the only new person there because, I didn't want to reboot it or reinvent it. I wanted continuity, so I was excited to hire everyone again. And Russell is just an insane genius. I basically said to him, in the comic book, the final sequence takes place in Times Square, and obviously we could not afford to do that. So I came up with the idea of just setting the whole thing in the evil lair and riffed on that with Matthew a bit, and then Russell just took that ball and ran with it. And Russell is a bit of an evil genius himself, and I loved what he did in there, the design of it. And there's so many details that you can't even see in the movie. Like, there's a rock climbing wall on the back of the evil lair, but it's all like nipples and dildos.
That's perfect.
There's all sorts of just weird shit, and like there's a mechanical bull.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think there's just so many cool nooks and crannies, and that's what Russell does. Like the Justice Forever set was just amazing. I would love to shoot a whole movie in there. There was the level of detail was mind blowing. Like on one table one day, one of the actors pointed out to me that they'd put this thing there, a piece of paper that was taped down with the name of every member of Justice Forever and how they took their coffee.
Wow.
So cool, and that's all Russell. It's all Russell.
Great.
So you guys mentioned the shark in the lair. Can I just tell you how happy I was that you included that, D subline storyline of the shark in the lair, them having to try to figure out what's wrong with the shark. That's my favorite sequence in the comic book is them always having the looming shark on the background whenever they're in the lair and what's wrong with it.
Well, it's so emblematic. It's so emblematic of Kick-Ass. It's one of the reasons why I got excited about Kick-Ass 2 was Chris's story. The first movie is about a normal kid trying to be a superhero, and the second movie is about a normal kid trying to be a supervillain.
Yeah.
And it was fun in the first movie seeing Dave try to be a superhero and it never really going the way he thought it would go. The first time when he goes out and he gets stabbed and hit by a car and it's just kind of a disaster. I wanted Chris to experience the same thing, but on an even more intense way. And so the idea with the shark is, of course he wants a shark. Of course a supervillain wants a shark. But it's never really going to work the way he wanted to. The tank's not going to be big enough. The water's going to be wrong. Yeah. The shark is going to die probably. I have this little old tiny swimming pool in my yard, and I can't even get that thing right. Sometimes there's too much chlorine. Sometimes there's too little. There's algae sometimes. Other times you jump in and it you feel like you're swimming in a chemical bath because there's so much chlorine. And I can't imagine trying to keep a shark alive. It probably lasts for 2 days.
It's freaking amazing. So can we talk about?
Did John Romita Jr. find it? Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
You go, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris, go.
I was just wondering if John Romita Jr. ever stopped by the set and like hung out, or is that way after the fact?
No. John and Mark are in the movie fighting each other. In the big crowd shots of the Evil Air, they're fighting each other. John was dressed up as a bad guy, like a sort of demon character, and Mark is like a Stars and Stripes ninja. And if you actually pause on the wide shots, specifically you can find Mark because the costume really jumps out. And I really wanted to shoot some close-ups of them fighting, but you got to remember, Kick-Ass is not a studio movie. It's an independent film. It's financed independently. Universal released it, but we made that movie on a budget. We actually made Kick-Ass 2 for less than they made Kick-Ass 1.
Wow.
Even though it's a bigger movie, I had less money.
Yeah.
So we did not have time. I mean, I wanted to do it. I wanted to shoot some close-ups of them fighting and put it in there, but we literally did not have time. Like, I had to move on. So they're in the wide shots. But I think that's sort of perfect for Kick-Ass. The Marvel movies, you get the big, well-lit, perfect close-up of Stan Lee, but they're making those movies for like $200 million. Kick-Ass, we made for 1/10 of that, and you only get like a glimpse of Mark Miller and John Romita Jr. in the deep background because that's all that that's all the time and money we had.
Yeah.
But I will say this about those guys: they were super supportive, great collaborators. I really enjoyed working with them. For example, John, when we were in post, I decided I wanted to do those freeze frames of the new characters, the Tumor, Genghis Carnage, who were both characters I created for the script, but then Mother Russia, and we really obviously changed Mother Russia's look quite a bit. So I called up John. I was like, I need some John Romita Jr. artwork of these characters, and he did it overnight and FedExed it to me in London, because I did the whole movie in London. We shot it there, we posted it there, I was there for a whole year, and those are the stills that are in the film. So they're incredible collaborators and team players, and I'm just so grateful to them for the opportunity and to them for trusting me with their baby. I don't think this has been announced yet. I probably shouldn't say it. Well, I wrote it in the Kick-Ass 3. I'm saying it. I wrote the introduction for Kick-Ass 3 for the graphic novel, and it was just basically me professing my love for those guys and what they've created.
Very cool.
Very cool. So pick that up. I believe it's coming out next year, maybe?
Yeah, the graphic novel's coming out. I just saw the layout for the intro.
Yeah, they just released the cover, I think, recently. So
the final issue's not even. I don't think the final issue's on stands yet. I mean, I got a preview of it.
Yeah, it's not out yet. Nope, still waiting on it.
Yeah.
Pins and needles.
You're gonna love it. Trust me.
No spoilers, Jeff. I'll have to kick you out of here.
Will there be a number 3 movie?
God, I hope so. It's sort of up to Matthew Vaughn at this point. I sort of feel like, he's the George. I don't feel like I know he's the George Lucas to. He is to Kick-Ass what George Lucas is to Star Wars. And so while I was excited to come in and write and direct the second chapter, if there's going to be a third chapter, I think it's sort of up to him to find the person that's going to do that, or maybe even he'll do it himself. I certainly hope so, because I would love to see it on screen.
Speaking of George, sorry.
Even if he did do a third chapter, it would be so far removed from the comic book at this point because of all the changes that would be made. It would be literally a direct sequel to the movie, having very little ties to the comic at that point. Would you agree?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's certain things you can do. It's sort of what we did with the sequel, where Kick-Ass 2, where we try to honor the source material even when we had to alter it. For example, you could open with Mindy getting busted doing something and thrown in jail, right? So now you set up the need for the breakout. Dave is training, but the heroes, we set up that being a superhero has been outlawed. You'd certainly introduce the idea of Chris having a third uncle, who shows up from Sicily. I mean, I think you could do it. I mean, I think the biggest change would, really be Mindy. If they made the movie, I mean, Chloe would be in her late teens at that point, so that would be a significant departure. But I think it could be done. It's just a question if there's an appetite.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Go ahead, Chris.
Mine was more to go. I know you went to USC, the cinema. With have you seen what they have done there lately, or were you there with the new buildings they made that on the campus and everything? I mean, they're gorgeous.
I totally missed the new buildings. It's such a bummer. I actually got a tour of the new facilities a couple years ago when they opened, and it was really depressing. I was like, so all that money I paid for tuition went to building these buildings.
Here you go. Here, I'll put that on for you right there. A little fight on for you.
Nice.
Are you really talking about architecture on the show, Chris?
I'm sorry. I am. See what happens when I'm sober? We go into something else. But it's really beautiful. It almost looks like a studio. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Sorry.
It looks like a casino in Vegas.
Yeah.
Like a Venetian.
Sorry, Case. I do.
What's more amazing about it, when I was there, they had like one Avid, and you weren't allowed to even look at it, let alone touch it. We had to like cut 60 millimeter on flatbeds. I even had a moviola in my apartment because at the time, everyone was just like throwing them out in the professional sector. And I had to cut my sound on mag, and you go to USC now, and they literally have like Avids lining the hallway. Like Avid workstations and Final Cut workstations. It's an embarrassment of riches, but it's exciting. I love teaching film. I teach a short film workshop twice a year. I do it once in Virginia, in my hometown, in the fall, and then I do it once in the spring in Eugene, Oregon, at U of O. And the only reason we can do it is because of digital filmmaking. We couldn't have done something like that when I was taking film classes because the technology just wasn't there. But what we do is we make short films together in 72 hours. So it's a little bit like the 48-hour film project, but it's not a challenge or a competition. It's much more of a collaborative kind of thing where I produce 12 movies with high school teams, college teams, and community filmmakers, and they pitch them, write them, shoot them, and then edit them, and then we screen them together on Saturday night and have a big party. And the only reason we can do that is because of how the technology has changed. So it's an exciting time to be studying film.
Thank you.
Chris, you crack me up, son.
I could really go into it more. I grew up on that campus and watching the George Lucas building across from Heritage Hall, and just that was so small, and with his name on it, I was just like, whoa. And now here we go with the brand new studios.
Now, did you go there undergrad or for grad school?
I didn't even go to school there. No, I had a lot of friends there and some football coaches. I've been on that campus forever since I was a tyke.
No, I actually looked there undergrad when I was in high school, and it was such a different campus. They had like armed guards, and you had to show your ID just to get on the main part of the campus. But it's grown so much and grown out into the community. It's really changed.
All right, sorry, Casey, I had to get into that.
Back to superheroes.
It's okay. You can start your own USC podcast, and you can listen. Chat Trojan all you want. Fresno State Bulldogs. What? So I guess we'll talk about a little bit of comic books now. So where are you currently reading, Jeff?
I'm not gonna lie. I was a bit of a comic book addict when I was in high school and college, and I spent way too much money and was super broke. And so when I got into film school, I needed to start saving my money to finance my short films. And so I kind of quit cold turkey, probably around like 2000, 2001, maybe. And I kind of have to be careful. Like when I walk into comic book shops, I usually walk out several hundred dollars more broke. And so I've kind of channeled all that. I've channeled all that energy into action figures because that makes a lot more sense. I don't know why. No, the very short answer to your question is, when I'm reading things, I'm usually catching up on books I missed. Like I actually love reading comics on the iPad, believe it or not. Like I think it's...
How dare you?
Blasphemy. But I don't. In the 90s, they started printing them on really glossy pages, and they looked beautiful. But then they got away from that because the cost got too high. And it's really amazing to see them backlit, and just the colors are so vibrant. So I actually use those apps a lot to look at like older Marvel books or DC books from like the last 10 years, and just try to fill in holes in the continuity in my own mind, so I know what's going on. Although I did enjoy reading some of the books you guys sent my way. It was interesting to see the Max trade paperback, because I remember buying those issues on the stands in the 90s when they first launched Image.
Remember that shit had a fucking MTV cartoon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They never do that now.
It wasn't even like a cartoon either. It was like a weird sort of stop motion thing. Like they used panels from the comic, and they would kind of move them, remember? But there wasn't a lot of animation to it.
Yeah, it was crazy. You'll never see that show ever again.
Yeah. Yeah, they would never do anything like that. So that was fun to look at. I liked. It was interesting looking at the Star Wars stuff. You know, the comic book version of Lucas's first draft of the screenplay.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting because as filmmakers, you know, we do so many drafts. I mean, my God, I probably do 30 drafts of a script before I show it to anyone, right? Like I'm just constantly rewriting. Every day I start on page 1, right? But as I get towards the end of the script, I'm not rewriting the first 30 pages or so. I've kind of locked in. But certainly early on in the process, I'm rewriting those pages every day. Because I'm a believer, you got to start on page 1, because a movie is meant to be consumed in one sitting. So a script should be read in one sitting. So if I'm writing it, I got to start on page 1 every day so I can feel the movie, I can feel the flow of it. But then as a consumer of media, movies and comic books and TV shows, you only see one version. You only see the final version. So it's really interesting reading that comic book and flipping through it, because it's a chance to sort of glimpse at an earlier cut of what Star Wars could have been. Not even a cut, an earlier draft of what it might have been. I thought it was fascinating. What did you guys think of that?
We're huge fans of that over here. We love that for sure.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually had the artist on the show last week, Mike Mayhew. So that was really cool. We got to talk to him about it. And yeah, it's a really interesting idea. You can definitely see that it was much more of an adult story, much more of a kind of like a medieval story to begin with, and then how it grew into the kind of kid family story that it is now.
And who is the designer? Ralph McQuarrie or Corey? What's his last name? Do you guys remember?
A lot of there's definitely some elements that were taken from Ralph McQuarrie, who was the guy that did a lot of the original storyboards for Lucas.
Yeah.
Star Wars. Yeah.
You can really see that in the art.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike mentioned that he actually like looked at those designs and talked to Ralph and worked with him on the book as well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually kind of prefer the look of the stormtrooper in those books book, and I really like the alien Han Solo. I really think that's a cool touch.
That's what I loved.
Yeah.
Cool idea. What else are you guys reading?
Will, what did you read this week, Will?
I read. There wasn't a ton of stuff that I'm really into that came out this week, so I caught up on what I missed last week. So first thing I read was Black Widow issue number 8. Did you see this cover, Casey?
No.
I love this cover. You notice it's like half of her is the Winter Soldier.
Oh yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Yeah, it was a good issue. It definitely felt like a little bit more of a one-off issue where she's on a mission and the Winter Soldier is on the same mission, kind of just on a different side of it. So we get to see because obviously they had a past of some sort, and some of that is missing from her memory, and so they kind of hint at that a little bit, just while they're both on this mission. Doesn't get too involved in the overall storyline, but it's definitely a cool issue. This continues definitely to be one of my favorite Marvel titles. It's just got that very cool old spy thriller feel to it. Just your typical, espionage.
What's it called?
This is the new Black Widow.
Oh, cool. Is it limited or ongoing?
It's ongoing right now. Yeah, it's a really cool story.
What do you think of her in the movies?
I mean, you're asking the wrong guy, man. I love Scarlett Johansson.
I love Scarlett Johansson too, but it's not really the Marvel character, right? Like the Marvel character is a former Russian spy.
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing remotely.
It's definitely not this character that you're seeing in this book. Definitely not. Yeah. It's completely different.
And she started out as a bad guy, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Yeah.
And you don't get any of that vibe from ScarJo.
No. This is more going back to her roots, where she's obviously had a very sordid past, and now she's at a point where she's trying to make good, I guess you can say, in all the bad that she's done. So she's fixing
who was supposed to
ledger.
Have you guys heard who was supposed to play her in the movie initially in Iron Man 2?
I don't remember now.
No.
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt. Oh, that's right.
Really?
Emily Blunt.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been interesting.
I don't think she would have been as good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Jeff, I'm gonna have to defend ScarJo a little bit here because I don't.
No. I've got to be clear. I'm not bagging on ScarJo. I'm a huge fan. I think actually she's fantastic in Winter Soldier. I think actually she was one of the highlights of that movie for me, and I loved the whole movie. But it was a high point. I was taking more of an issue with just the conceit of the character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that I actually think they left some really interesting material on the table, basically, by not leaning into who she used to be, her background, and the fact that she can't really be trusted. Right now, she's just sort of like she's just a badass female agent, and no one's better at that than Scarlett Johansson. I just think it would have been interesting if they had been a little more true to the character in the comic book. You know?
I feel like we kind of started to see just a little bit of that in the Winter Soldier, and I'm really hoping they give her her own movie to really explore that, because, like you said, they're missing a big chunk out of what makes the character who she is that they haven't really touched on at all, really.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. I just grabbed off my pile, my to-read pile, right, that I've got to get to one day.
Yeah.
And I want to plug, what else I got here? I've got the G.I. Joe Collectors Club newsletter.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, 50th anniversary. Oh, what was I looking at? I've got these two books here that I'm excited about. I'm curious if either one of you have read. They're both from Boom. You guys read any of the Boom books?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Boone. Yep.
You read either Talent or Polarity?
I have not.
No. Yeah.
I'm excited to read them because they have a big deal at Fox now, so they're going to be trying to make more movies out of their properties.
Okay. Very cool.
Did you guys see Two Guns?
Yes.
What did you think?
I thought that was a super great movie.
It's fun. I mean, it's okay.
Did you read the books?
No.
No, I did not read the books.
No.
Yeah, that's a Boom property as well.
Okay.
It's interesting to see a movie like that, right? That's based on a comic book.
Yeah.
But I think to the average moviegoer, they would have no idea that it was based on.
No idea.
Yeah, I didn't know either. Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
That was a
I always tell my wife. when we're watching a movie and she'll like start to get into it. And I'm like, this is based on a comic book, right? And she's like, really?
She's like, I'm done. I'm out. Later.
Well, what it does is it highlights an interesting trend in Hollywood, which is it's so hard to get movies made now. So if you can show a financier a graphic novel and it's a visual representation of what the story could be, it actually helps you get the movie made even more than having the perfect script, because at the end of the day, a script is just words on a page. But if you can show some of the action, some of the set pieces, create a feeling, help them connect with the material, it actually can help you get the movie made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and comics offer such a wide variety of stories, and it's not just like your normal superhero stuff. So yeah, there's a huge plethora of things to pull from out there.
Yeah. What movies are you guys excited about coming out?
Besides Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah,
Guardians.
It's the only thing I care about.
I have a buddy who saw Guardians, and he said Rocket Raccoon steals the show, that he's just amazing.
Yes.
That's what we're waiting for.
I was a huge fan of the books before anyone had ever heard of that stuff. And Will can protest.
Yeah.
As soon as that stuff came out, I told him, I was like, man, that raccoon is gonna make $1 billion.
Oh yeah.
And it's gonna be because of the raccoon.
It is it's all about the raccoon.
On our way to Kamikaze, Casey made me read the first 8 issues of the reboot, and I was like, dude, this is gonna be huge, man, because I'm hooked already.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Chris Pratt fan. I just think that guy can do no wrong.
Oh yeah, that guy's amazing, man.
Yeah, I think the movie's going to be fantastic. I'm excited. And it's also interesting to see them continue to expand the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, if you had told me after I saw Iron Man that within the same universe there was going to be a movie with a talking raccoon in outer space, I would have said you were absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Don't forget the fucking tree, man. There's a tree that talks too.
That's got to be the quote of the show. Don't forget the fucking tree.
Twitter quote of the night.
Get the fucking tree. Yeah, but they've pulled it off. I mean, the way they just sort of slowly built that world out, you know, you just believe that all these different characters and all these different corners of this Marvel universe can intersect. I'm really excited for Doctor Strange. I think that's just another level that they're going to be able to explore the mysticism, the supernatural side. I think it's going to be really fascinating.
And I think go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Will.
I think from what we're already hearing from this movie, and you know how well it seems like how successful it's going to be, is really going to make it available where we get to see those movies come to life, like Doctor Strange. Whereas before they would have been like, nobody's going to want to see that movie. It's too weird.
Yeah, no, Doctor Strange is definitely getting made. I think Scott Derrickson is directing it.
Yeah.
So we'll see that with Ant-Man.
Right.
It'll be very interesting. It'll also be interesting to see which characters they stop making movies about, because you know they only can do about 2, maybe 3 movies a year, right?
Yeah.
So if Doctor Strange works, if Ant-Man works, you know, are they going to stop making Iron Man movies? I mean, they might have to because they can't afford Robert Downey Jr. But they don't have the bandwidth to make 5 or 6 movies a year, and as much as we love them, I'm not sure there is an appetite for 6 movies a year. So it'll be interesting to see which characters getting.
Yeah.
What are your feelings on Dawn of Justice? How do you feel that movie's shaping up?
I'm really excited. I think Zack Snyder is an incredible visual filmmaker. I mean, I think 300 was a groundbreaking movie.
Yeah.
You know, when I saw the sequel, it was like a huge reminder of just how significant that film was. I think Dawn of the Dead is a fantastic movie. Even his misfires, I think, suffer from story issues. I still think they're visually really powerful. Like, I think you pull stills from Watchmen or Sucker Punch, they're you know, really incredibly breathtaking. So I'm excited for Dawn of Justice. I think it's going to be fantastic. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we don't have that much time.
I mean, you look at that still of Affleck in the bat suit. I think it's very Frank Miller. You know, I thought
for sure
you would never see the Dark Knight, Frank Miller's Dark Knight on the big screen, specifically after Nolan, you know, co-opted the idea of the Dark Knight. Effectively, I love the Nolan films, but I thought that kind of meant we would never see Frank Miller's Dark Knight. But it feels like they found a way to make it happen.
Yeah, it's not the Batman still I have a problem with. It's the Superman one. I feel like like that character has always been so colorful and bright and like a beacon of hope. And I feel like even in the Man of Steel, he just wasn't that guy. Like he wasn't that guy. Like he was gloomy. He was hobo Superman wandering the streets, like depressed. Like
he's brooding.
Yeah, like I don't need broody Superman. That's what Batman's for. I want happy Superman. I want him to smile once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't think he smiled once in that entire movie. So I just worry, and it's a kind of a trend, an ongoing trend with the comic book movie stuff. Kick-Ass excluded, that this stuff goes a little too dark sometimes.
Yeah, they're trying to make it dark just for the sake of making it darker.
Yeah, and as much as I love Chris Nolan's films, I mean, that's the reason why you've got these studio executives and producers, who look at those movies as the defining superhero movies. And I hear this note all the time. They're like, make it more like The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And it's tough when you're making a movie that doesn't need to be like The Dark Knight.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need two Batmans, dude. We don't.
Yeah. But that, it'll swing back. It'll swing back. Someone will make a movie about sort of like it might swing back after Guardians. I mean, if Guardians is a huge runaway, phenomenal success, it's got this great sort of swashbuckling, kind of ironic swagger, right?
Yeah.
And if that really works and connects in a big way, Monday morning after that movie comes out, I promise you I'm going to be getting notes from studio executives where they're saying, can you make it more like Guardians of the Galaxy?
Can you put a talking raccoon in this?
Yeah.
Can he
we
have a raccoon
that
as a
doesn't talk?
friend?
Yeah. Orca will be a raccoon.
Yes. I don't know, man. That might be too far-fetched.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, I just lost my train of thought. So I'm going to talk about a couple of books I read this week, just real quick, just to kind of pay some bills here. So I read The Life. Oh my God, I forgot the name of it. It's from Oni Press. It's called The Life After, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, The Life After.
Is that what it's called?
Yep.
I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's a really cool story. It's basically about a guy who lives kind of a mundane, like stationary life, and it's every day is the same. And then one day he wakes up in a different world, surrounded by different crazy people, and he may or may not be dead. So it's just a really kind of cool take on like the death story, and how mundane life can be, and how crazy it can be to kind of fall into the routine of life, and then all of a sudden that you're dead and you're somewhere else. The art is really what captured me. It's really laid out very beautifully. There's my favorite scene is a splash page, basically of like 30 or 40 different squares, and it just shows his day over and over and over and over and over
That
again.
was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really, really, really enjoyed that book. I thought it was really fun, so I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that.
You know what it felt like to me a little bit, Casey? It kind of felt like The Matrix. He was kind of like, just going through the motions every day, and all of a sudden he got unplugged, and
Yeah,
that
exactly.
opened up this whole new thing now.
What was that called?
It's
The
called
Life
After.
Did you send that to me, Casey?
I did, and if not, I'll send it to you again when we're done here. I'll make sure I send it to you again.
Okay. I'm gonna read it.
And I think even there's a character he meets where he says like, "Oh, you've woken up, like you understand, like
Yeah.
what's happening now."
Right.
So yeah, it is very Matrixy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm really gonna keep an eye on that. And Oni has really been putting out some great books lately. Between that and Princess Ugg and Letter 44, like they're putting out some of my favorite stuff. So I'm really excited to get free copies of those all the time and share
Oh,
with
yeah.
you guys.
Good
So
stuff.
also out this week, I can't believe you didn't pick this up, Will. The last issue of Winter Soldier, The Bitter
Yeah.
March.
Yeah, I missed a couple of them, so I didn't pick that one up.
So this is the final issue. Basically, it wraps up the 5-issue story arc. I'm not going to say any much because it'll give it away, but in typical Rick Remender fashion, he wraps up the story really nicely. No one has a happy ending, of course.
Mhm.
That's no secret. If you read a Rick Remender book, no one ever has a happy ending. Not ever. Not fucking ever. But I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this 5-issue series. It's really kind of a cool look at the Winter Soldier and kind of like an offshoot of his story. And then you get a couple like cool like Agents of Shield moments and cool Nick Fury moments, and it's really just a fun book, a really kind of fun 5-parter action series. And if you're interested in the Winter Soldier, if you liked the movie, I definitely recommend going and get this book 1 through 5. It's a nice, fun story that kind of will give you more background on the Winter Soldier. Also out this week was a tie-in to Original Sin, and I always preach this on the podcast whenever there is a crossover happening, that it's best to pick up whoever's writing the crossover, it's best to pick up their book as well. So I picked up Jason Aaron's Thor, crossover with Original Sin, and basically this tells the story of the 10th realm, which is heaven, and how it was broken off from the 9th realm, and how Angelina is Thor's sister. So this is it's a I believe it's a 5-part miniseries. I want to say, maybe it's three parts. I don't know. It's a couple issues. It's a little miniseries, and it's basically going to tell that story. So in this issue, we're going to learn that there's not 9 realms, but there's 10 realms, and that Thor has a sister who is now a part of the Marvel universe, who is actually a character that Neil Gaiman created for Spawn. Very confusing.
Did that book tie in a little bit to the Loki comic?
Yeah, so Loki is a part of this book, and yeah, it does tie into that book. And the villain in this comic, I believe, is going to turn out to be old Loki, like it is in the Loki comic.
Okay, got it.
So it's actually titled Loki and Thor and Loki, the 10th Realm. So it may be combining those two comics.
Yeah.
At the same time, but it's very cool. The art is fucking gorgeous. So check it out.
Sweet.
Last but not least, I also picked up a 100th anniversary of Spider-Man issue, and I only picked it up because the cover was so cool. It's Kingpin in the symbiote suit.
Okay.
So I don't know. It was just a cool comic. Anyway,
yeah.
I'm done with that stuff. So
I gotta get back to work.
I was gonna say we're wrapping up to the end. So Jeff, we'll say goodbye to you. Let you get back to let you get back to your thing and get back to writing your movies and doing all that stuff. So thank you very much for coming on. We appreciate it. Please plug yourself away.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been a real distinct pleasure, and would love to do it again sometime.
Awesome.
Well, I have your email, so I can stalk you and get you back.
Dude, as long as you send me free books, you can stalk me all you want.
Yeah, I'll send you some more stuff. So just email me, let me know what you want to see, and I'll send it right over.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. Take care.
Thank you, Jeff.
See you later.
Bye.
Uh-oh. So we lost Jeff. That was a cool interview. Glad you could stay on with us as long as you could.
Yeah.
So did you want to talk about any news, or you want to wrap the show up? How do you want to do this?
Shoot, man. Is there news to talk about?
I don't know. We can be done.
Yeah. No, I don't think much, man.
There wasn't much going on in this week, right?
I mean, besides that 17-minute IMAX preview for Guardians that everybody's going crazy over, but I didn't get to see it, so.
I don't want to talk. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to talk about that movie anymore. I'm kind of over it at this point. I'm not doing anything else until.
I'll tell you, I had like 3 or 4 people text me and be like, "Dude, it's like game change. It's up there with Avengers. Like the way it's just gonna change everything from here on out." So that's all I heard.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Yeah. Casey says, okay? Casey says it's gonna be awesome. Yeah, but anyways, yeah, man, I think that's good.
Okay, well, I guess we'll mention Gail Simone announced today that she was leaving Batgirl comic, so that's kind of sad. So we're sorry to see her go, but she'll still be doing other things. So just a little bit of comic news.
So is that why why everybody's been posting this new version of Batgirl that they're doing now?
Yeah, so they announced her departure, and then they announced immediately the new creative team, and then this new direction that they're going, which is kind of more of like a teen story, more like lighthearted. Which I don't know how I feel about the approach. I do like the costume. I do like the design of it. I think it's very cool. But
yeah, it's definitely more practical and more real.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I don't know why we don't need to teen it up. It's cool. It's fine the way it is.
Yeah. Very
so
cool.
Good luck, Gail, on your future endeavors. But she's still writing Red Sonja and Tomb Raider and all that stuff. So go check that stuff out.
Very cool.
All right. So we done here?
We're done, buddy.
All right, man. So, shit. Well, I feel so lost now.
Yeah, I'm all, dude. You have somebody on like Jeff. What do you follow it up?
Okay, we don't follow up with anything. We get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
So go check us out. Go check out the website geekswithwives.com. There's new content going up every day. Comic book reviews, comic book previews, TV show reviews, TV show previews, cosplayers of the week, cosplayers of the month. There's literally something new every single day, so make sure you guys are going to check it out. Also, make sure you guys are checking us out at GWW Capes Crew. Make sure you're checking out all of our other podcasts, the Geeks with Wives podcast about video games, and the new podcast about movies and TV with Chad and Natalie, Geeks with Wives and Popcorn.
Yeah.
So, Will, why don't you get us out of here?
As always, you can find us on Twitter at GWWCapesCrew, and you can find me at Darth Sparrow. And as always, thanks for watching and listening, and we will catch you on the geek side.